New Order, or Nuevo Orden, as is the original title, new Mexican film out in theaters. Story starts with a wedding that is happening at the house of some obviously very wealthy people. Everyone is beautiful, well dressed, they're talking about business over drinks and so on. And then an old man arrives at the house. As we learn, he used to work for the owners of the house and the parents of the bride, and he now desperately needs money for an urgent operation for his wife. Some members of the family would like to help him, others find this interruption annoying and kind of want him gone. So it's obviously an increasingly awkward situation. And as that is happening, we learn through various casual mentions and some background dialogue that there are some demonstrations, some protests going on in the city, and the situation is getting progressively more out of control. And eventually, some of the rioting protesters suddenly arrive at the house as well, and things escalate really, really quickly. So the film is meant to be this commentary on economic disparity, on the nature of revolutions, and the nature of people caught up in them as well. But I do feel that a lot of its potential ends up unrealized. The plot is not strong enough to support the underlying ideas. The film can easily be split into two parts. The first one is the whole wedding intro up until things go to shit. And the second is everything from the following morning onwards. The first part is therefore like observing a lit fuse. We know from the first moment something is going to go wrong, but we don't know just how much and how exactly. I think this part is made well. It does a good job of efficiently introducing and establishing all of the characters and their situation, and it does slowly introduce this tension to the mix, this real sense of danger for everybody involved. And then the second part is kind of hit and miss for me. I think that the plot goes in an interesting direction initially, but has a very anticlimactic ending, and in fact I'm still not sure if I didn't follow exactly what happened at the end, or and for what reason, or if that's perhaps the movie's fault for not explaining it properly. And there is one element of the film which makes the first half work better, but at the same time the second half worse, and it's the ambiguity of the nature of protests, the identity of the villains, and the whole wider context of what exactly is going on. We never learn about the political affiliation, about the wider situation, what sparked those protests, and so on. And at the beginning, this is great because we fear the unknown, so that increases the feeling of dread and danger. But then as the movie progresses into more of a socio-political commentary, I feel that this context was necessary in order to make the point that the movie was trying to make. Because frankly, I'm not exactly sure what the main point was in the end. The one fantastic aspect that I would have liked explored more was the idea of the aftermath and how a bloody revolution conducted by the poor against the rich in the long run ends up with the poor actually suffering more severe consequences than the rich themselves. Even though they are hit the hardest at this one key moment, afterwards there are moments where it almost seems like nothing changed for them. The disconnect from the working class is still very much there. Like no lessons were learned, whereas for the poor people it's the polar opposite. I thought that was the most interesting part of the film, but it is kind of in the background, in a shadow of the main storyline, which again I think is just too weak to carry the film. Which is a shame because it is a bold, brutal picture that I think could have ended up saying something really interesting, but ends up being a bit underwhelming.